Hello and welcome. I am Sean Dubé.
And I'm Patrick Quinlan.
And this is Supporting Actors, a podcast about the art, business, and craft of acting from the perspective of two sometimes working actors.
Yeah, today we're talking about the it factor or the work it factor. Talent versus hard work, all the things that, the alchemy that goes into an acting career.
That's true. You know, some things are easier than others, but most things are achievable with hard work. Not to give away where I stand on this, but I think I'm pro work ethic.
Yeah, I mean, there's a work ethic to you. You have to control what you can control, right? And the work you put in is where most of it happens. That said, it as we've talked about before, it's subjective. So
Yep.
There's certainly luck and a few other things that can sometimes determine success for other people. So when you're, I think anyone listening has probably wondered how watching a show and thinks, how'd that guy get this job? And it's always a good question.
Yeah. It is. And there's different answers to that question depending on who the actor is. But what do we mean by talent? So let's try to define it. Talent, I think, is for acting, it's challenging because there's so many different things that go into it. It could be likability, right? Like charisma, or your ability to portray character or understand scenes, your ability to play pretend or be believable in a scene. These are all different things, or like your ability to have a persona outside of yourself and how far that can go, how flexible. But I think those are all things that can somewhat be improved with work ethic, I think. Mm-hmm. So I think if there's a talent at all, it is maybe your curiosity for the depth that you are willing to go to before you get bored.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I think that's definitely true. I think, the camera or audiences reward different types of talent, frankly. Like, and not to, we might at another day talk about movie stars versus actors.
And I think we have to.
But there is this idea of like range, right? So it's like there are actors who are really good at this very specific character or archetype or very specific, and then there are actors who are very talented at a wide variety. They just have more range. Both of those things can be very lucrative and rewarding for audiences and for that actor, depending on it. I think there's a story of like Cary Grant. Cary Grant, I think, took a Meisner class once upon a time. Mm-hmm. And Sanford Meisner was like, working him, leading him to having a very vulnerable, truthful experience. And he was like, they did it. And he goes like, yeah, no, thank you. He went on to have a great career, know? So for me, I love actors who are vulnerable and emotionally available. And, like, I don't know, Philip Seymour Hoffman comes to mind, where it's just like, gosh, you are sucked into what this person is feeling on a deep cellular level. Well, but I also admire very, actors who are like, I like Tom Cruise movies too, where you're just like, you are good at being a weapon, sir.
Yeah. He's like, those two right there are a great example of like movie star or actor. Now, I think Tom Cruise is interesting because he can also be an actor.
Yeah.
But he chooses to be a movie star.
He has the talent.
Yeah, and I think the difference between those things, and we should definitely get into this on another episode and not hijack this one, but I think the major difference is not necessarily range per se, but I think it is the camera a tool that you're working with, or is it observing you having an experience? And I think that is the large driving factor between actors and movie stars. And I say that just from listening to 100 different interviews and reading books about like how people think about this. And you tend to hear about actors being like, well, I don't think about the camera at all. and some subconsciously, some part of them is doing stuff right. Whereas like movie stars are like, oh, I know right where that camera is. I know right where the light is. I know right where the mic is. I am consciously making choices to make my performance as impactful as possible in that genre or like in that
Right.
venue, right? So it's, and I think that's the difference is kind of how they participate in the filmmaking process.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because you when you run into a person who has had a level of fame, whether that's in real life or on a set, sometimes there is this like you feel the it factor. You feel like, oh, yeah, like you I have a relationship with you already because I've seen this person's work or something, but
Yes.
sometimes there's a quality, a glow, an energy around them that you're just like, oh, I get it. Like, like I
There's something
get why you magnify that on a big screen, and I'm hooked, right? And other times you meet a very famous person, and you're like, oh wow, they're so normal,
yeah,
and so there is this intangible thing that comes with talent, I think,
sure.
or is attributed to talent sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that again, in an attempt to define it, I think the it factor largely is a person's like comfort in themselves,
Yeah.
or a comfort in what they're willing to show, because
Hmm.
sometimes it's calculated, right? If you think, and again, going back to movie stars, there's like one thing they show us, and it's like, but they're really comfortable doing it,
Right.
and that transcends, and
And they're an
that
expert at it. Like they're
yes,
like, this is like, I am the vessel through which this type of thing can be expressed, and I know how to do. Like, it's when you see Denzel hit his chest, and
yeah,
you're like, yes, like that's what I want. But that's, okay, so I'm gonna jump.
yeah,
We maybe haven't totally defined it because there's a whole series of acting skills that are talent related, from
yes,
script analysis to listening to
hmm
physical expressiveness to vocal musicality, like,
or
and
connection
that
with your voice,
the connect, yeah, just the instrument.
yeah.
But can talent be developed? Each of those things can
Well,
be. You can work
is
it, but
is talent a theoretical ceiling or is it a starting spot? Right?
yeah,
Because we all have things that come naturally and we all have things that we have to work on, but there is still like a base level something that a lot of us have that are been
like there's, I think we all have, we could all probably find an actor in the pantheon of actors that we've watched and think like, oh, I just don't like them. I don't like their work. And it's like, why are they successful, or why do they keep getting that? Why do they keep getting hired? And that's a taste issue most of the time, but chances are, I think, is that the part was perfectly suited for their natural
yeah, ability.
talent,
Hmm.
ability, charisma, personality at this moment, and it worked for a project, and then everyone's trying to recapture that lightning in a bottle, and maybe miscasting that person or not using them to the best of their abilities later, but it was so successful at one point in time that it's worth a shot to try again, I suppose, because you're like, well, worst case scenario, it's a nice name, or we can sell
Yeah.
to a territory or whatever, right? There's some cynical logistics that go into it as well from the movie making standpoint.
Yeah. That's yeah, I think that's fair. I think again in this poor attempt to define talent, I think it's if it's on an absolute scale of should not act to has an ability to act, talent, I think if you're pursuing a career, like most of us are somewhere in the middle of that bell curve, right?
Hmm.
And if you haven't been told that you should find something else, or if you haven't like self-selected into something else, or if something else hasn't chose you, right? Because I do think that as you get older, especially, and we are doing that, if nothing else, you start to realize that your talents and what you have, like, will ultimately kind of help you find your spot in the universe or in society, right?
Right.
Society, it's a two-factor thing. And so, like, if something hasn't taken you away from it, then you have a talent for it, right? If it's one of those things where you find yourself 10 years down the road and you're like, man, this is all I know or all I want, you probably have a talent for it. But it's difficult to define, I think, because it is an untangible thing. And it's one of those things that you can't really perceive in yourself because it's like too close to you, but you see it in other people. And it is kind of that thing that a person can hook you in, like you find them interesting. They have an ability to show you something that is captivating in a way. And I think
Mhm.
that's kind of, to put a simple term on it, kind of what talent is the ability to be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, and that in and of itself, like,
As an actor,
yeah,
we're all interesting as people. And you could meet, there are, everyone has something that would be interesting to talk to them about, right? But there's certain skills, there's certain personality traits that lend themselves to acting and transcending self. And I think that is ultimately what the talent is that we're trying to define, right? It's like, it's the ability to find the universal truths within humanity and share them.
yeah. And some people, I think, when you think of certain actors who've just had like a tremendous amount of success and maybe even no training, right? It's just like, oh, it's just like tapped in. Like and it feels like a God-given talent, but it's also that the story, the circumstances aligned with what they have to offer as
Sure.
and their point of view on the world. But
Or
um
talent might also be an intuitive understanding of a process,
yeah,
right? Where there's some things that that just come naturally to us.
yeah,
And that might be acting for some people, right? Like Jennifer Lawrence famously has not taken classes, but she clearly has understood how to do this from a very early age, right? And she's
yeah.
worked
And
with
she
great directors and she's worked with other great actors, and you start to pick stuff up, right, professionally and technique
and
wise. And
she still delivers, like
yes,
when you
she does.
it's
But
fun to
she's
read her
also
work.
like a very curious person, right?
Yeah,
And like there's no doubt that she's not trying to seek her own way of improving, right? And she's also been very vocal about, like, I watch my own work and I see what sucks and I do it differently next time. And it's like a great way to learn.
yeah. I mean, I think you when you said being interesting, like that is something that just comes natural. Some people are just kind of interesting, or they're super expressive or
Mhm.
reactive, and but Steve McQueen, who famously would cut a lot of his lines and just
Mhm.
prefer to have a look or whatever.
Like
I think
Benicio del
there's a
Toro.
yeah, a modern day version. There's and same always looking for what's the interesting way to do this thing.
Yeah.
What's the most interesting way to do this? And not and this might be a different episode in terms of preparation, but not necessarily they're not finding an interesting thing for the sake of being interesting. It is still serving the story.
Right.
Um,
Well, but I think that's kind of like where we start tipping into the work ethic part of it,
yeah, that
right?
would be a work ethic. Yeah,
Yeah, because that's, you know, once you do enough of it, you start to understand what, like, what choices you can make on the day, right? And how the audience might experience that, right?
yeah,
You work with your director to figure that stuff out. But, that's like, there's been reports of like Robert De Niro talking about tying his shoes on set, right? Like on camera, and doing that, like 20 different takes of tying shoes to find what is the interesting way that is right for this character in this moment to be doing this,
hmm
right? And you're just tying shoes, but it's also like your hands are in there. There's part of that is storytelling, right? Like that is
yeah,
an opportunity to share something about the character and the way they're doing that thing. And
yeah,
it's that specificity that is talent, but it's also work ethic, because you have to, I guess maybe your ability to find it is talent and your willingness to do it is work ethic. And maybe that's what it is. And like
Yeah.
you need the two things.
Yeah. And I mean, Robert De Niro being an example, he has both, right? He's
Yes.
clearly like a work ethic person. And in terms of just
Well, I mean,
both.
I think a lot of big actors like that, like Daniel Day-Lewis is another one,
Yeah.
or,
An
Adrian.
obsessive
Yes.
work ethic person. Yeah.
Yes. Well,
But,
the process is everything for them. They love the process
right.
of creating character and understanding it.
I mean,
And some of them so much so they don't come out, right? Like that's another.
oh, like break character.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, but it's but I think, but that's there's a part of the process of acting that requires joy, right? And if you're not having fun, even in the shittiest moments of your character's life, if there's not part of you that is enjoying that freedom of expression, then it's not really going to be interesting. And I think that, our job on set is to set ourselves up to have what we need to have as much fun as possible going through that experience, right?
Well, and I would say that that's probably that confidence of like a person being like, I'm going to do this because it's going to, I'm an actor choosing to like say remain in character because it's
Yeah.
going to
But if that's
fulfill me
fun for them,
and have
if
me
that's
yeah,
if that's what's
but that's
greenlighting their fun, then
that's a level of that is a talent to identify like I need to do this, like I need to, I think. But so here what comes to mind is this idea of like, can anyone be an actor? And I think yes,
I think so.
because we all
yes.
were kids and kids
Yeah.
play pretend, and we all lie pretty at least
Yes.
put on airs or stifle ourselves or retell stories in our day-to-day lives. So an actor is just a regular person who has learned to like get rid of some of the filters that society asks us to do to not to indulge in some of the feelings and impulses that we're supposed to repress to be like a worker bee or a member of society. But as an actor as a person who's just like trying to get back to that more pure place of play, and also has to have a day job or also has to have other responsibilities. You have to, I mean, how lucky would we be to be just in character on set all the time? And everyone be like, this is great. Sean's not an asshole at all.
Yeah, right. Like everyone's so tickled that it's just like, man, he's just so committed. It's incredible. Never once, like especially the characters that tend to be the stickiest are the most problematic. It seems to be that way, right? In terms of what you read, but that's not necessarily been my experience. But that is very funny.
I just have a funny anecdote before we move on. I heard a story about an acting teacher who was requested to a famous actor's house and brought along a couple of their fellow teachers from their studio. And this, I don't know the context of this situation. It's just hearsay, but I like the idea of it. It's a person who's an actor who's very successful or, has had ups and downs of success, but is famous and successful and has been rewarded in all the different ways.
Yeah.
And person maybe had some bad headlines or something or whatever. And I imagine three actors sitting in a very large, like conversation pit of a house in the hills or something, right? Just waiting. And like, maybe there's an assistant waiting. And then this actor comes down and goes, all right, teach me how to act. And I'm like, I heard this story and I'm not sharing the name on purpose, but I was just like, I believe it. And two, I'm just like, the gall.
Yes.
Because that cost a lot of money to bring those people there that day. I mean, not for a very successful, wealthy person, a lot of money, but like, and then to just be like, oh, that's it. They can flip the switch today. And even though you clearly tapped into something already and kind of are doing it,
Right.
So
not to mention the mountain of bad habits, for a person like that, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better because you're going to have to unlearn all of these bad habits that you may have developed to
That's
cope, you
assuming
know?
they are sincere in that
That's true.
request and
Well,
not
for
just
sure. Well, I mean, I would say that
wanting their,
it's it
fame.
doesn't seem sincere if you're thinking you could do it in an evening, right?
No.
Where that's like, we've mentioned it in a previous episode, so like listener, you there's other references for this, but acting is a lifetime pursuit, right?
Right.
And like you'll hear a lot of teachers talk about like, well, yeah, an instrument, an actor is like mature after like 40 years of acting, and it's like, that's crazy. But that's also why if you look at like Harrison Ford doing the best work of his career, and
Hmm.
it's some of it's the role, but also some of it is him. And he's now able to do that and he's welcoming to that experience, right? And there is the like willingness to let go of your grasp of reality to experience that character, and that takes time, and like there's a lot of resistance to that. There's a lot of voice work and body work and awareness and psychological, owning your own stuff. And I think as you get older too, one of the benefits of it is that you stop caring quite so much about other people. And I feel like every decade you think you don't care, but then you find out that like now you really don't care. And I'm sure that
Yeah.
you continue to relax into yourself as you get older. And I think that's maybe part of it. But anyways, so it's kind of silly that someone would be like, all right, teach me how to act like in an evening. Like, it's not possible.
Well, and
It's
I would say like, that's where I mean, we could kind of shift gears into like
yeah,
sort of what are the different things, but talent as if we were to say like as a pillar of acting, like if there's maybe three pillars of things that your career can stand on, or maybe you only need two of those things, but talent, it can be also a problem, right?
yeah.
You could say like, oh, I'm talented, and then everyone should just work around my talent and you could be
Well, that's
horrible.
ego. Right.
Yeah, the ego gets in the way, but it's just like the word talent or the definition of talent. Oh, they've been deemed talented,
Yeah.
and now there's
I
a lot of
think,
apologizing for other things that,
yeah,
I don't think talent alone carries the day
I don't
ultimately.
think so either. And I think
And
it's the least important of the three things that we're going to talk about.
yeah, do you want to name the three, or
Well,
I
yeah.
can?
All right. So like the three pillars that we've identified are talent, professionalism, and your relationships or reputation.
Mhm.
So I think that, any of us that are working in any capacity are talented. There's a base level of talent there. Otherwise, we would have been self-selected out, or society would have selected us out for something else, right? Like our interests as human beings tend to gravitate towards what we're good at. We would have gone on to something else if there wasn't some base level of talent. So it's kind of a moot point for a lot of us. I think talent maybe helps you with some staying power, or maybe your maximum potential, right? Like you might have the broadest appeal to the most number of people, right? If that is a certain talent. But I think that professionalism, like being on time, being prepared, being great to work with, that's way more important. Answering emails. There's so many actors that are just terrible at emails,
Yeah.
and like just being a professional. Like this is a business, and like treat it like a business. So someone that can do that is going to stick out, and that's in a good way. And then relationships, it kind of is who you know. A lot of this is who you know, which is why there's people with no talent that get opportunities. And sometimes they stick around because they're great to work with, right?
Right.
So that's, when you're looking at the three, I think that's talent is the least important, but there's going to be some baseline there for all of us if we're still doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you might only need two of those things at any given moment. Like assuming there's
Mhm.
talent. I think a lot of, I think when younger actors or starting out actors, there's a desire to prove yourself, right? And there's a desire to
Yes.
prove your talent, and that gets in the way. And
Yes.
I think so much of this, like you said earlier, is being comfortable in who you are and
Mhm.
being comfortable with what you can do, and then allowing that to tell whatever story that, whatever story you're being tasked to tell. And so when you are trying to prove your talent, you're getting in your own way. And when you are, maybe you were hot shit in college or something, or like
Yeah.
you got an agent that blows a lot of smoke, or friends or whatever, and the talent could get in the way of your professionalism, of your preparation, of your showing up on time
Could be a
and
crutch.
planning for traffic and things like that. Turning in tapes at a deadline, like there's and answering emails, like that would go to relationships as well. Like everyone in is I think essentially working hard and trying to do the best they can. So there's just no room for disrespect. The novel I've mentioned on the podcast, A Violent Masterpiece.
Mhm.
I was listening to an interview with the Jordan Harper, the writer, and he's like, yeah, like I work in television, and there, when you work your way up, like you get invited into these circles and you hear things, you hear rumors, everyone talks and no one's really saying things out loud, and you hear these different rumors, and it can feel very like unjust, right? Like that, oh, these people, we all know this person's an a-hole. We all know this person is, stay away from them, or don't let the intern be, in the wake of Harvey Weinstein, that sort of thing, right?
Mm.
And he's like, the closest I've had is like, I have these books that I'm trying to turn into movies, and every now and then a producer says like, oh, okay, like here's a list of talent that we could hire, directors, actors, whoever, to be in it. And he's like, and I have this knowledge of rumors, and every now and then I'm say, not that guy. And that's the only, he's like, it's a small amount of justice, but, and like, it's not preventing that career from continuing, but at least like there is some poetic justice to be like, no, that person doesn't get to work on this project. And so I would say that, you do have a reputation, and it's very difficult, I imagine, to work up to a place where people can let you get away with much without, the defined talent portion or whatever. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're putting butts in seats, right, people's willingness to tolerate it is a lot higher. And that kind of, especially right now, because funding is so tight and Hollywood is so risk adverse, that, if you're someone people like, they're going to be willing to tolerate a little bit of bad behavior. And unfortunately,
the audience likes you, yes, then the crew has to deal with your bad behavior. Yeah.
Right, which is too bad. And it shouldn't be that way. It doesn't cost you anything to be nice, right?
No.
And like, I think a lot about Gene Hackman and the stories that would come up about him, about how he was like the nicest guy on set and the most talented actor, right? And he could be having a conversation with like the grip or the lighting guy, and then the director would say action, and he'd turn and poof, right in character, And you hear similar things about Meryl Streep, where she's just like, just nice to be with on set, but then she can turn it on in an instant. And it's like, I try to be that actor, and just be flexible, and just, you're there to have fun. You're there to do a job. Sometimes you need to ask for certain things to do your job. And that's like your job, your responsibility to know those. But by and large, like, you don't need to be, putting your problems on other people or creating problems for other people for the sake of your.
No, again, that's ego, right?
Yeah.
I suppose that's where that gets in the, there's no shortage of ego in Los Angeles, or probably in the arts in general, but it doesn't have to be that way. What do you think? Maybe we can like break down, like, I don't know, percentage wise, different phases of career, where talent, professionalism, relationships. What do you think's like the right cocktail for an actor in the beginning of their career?
Okay. I'm going to be professionalism heavy throughout this whole thing.
Me too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's just, how I like to work and who I like to surround myself with. But, so I think that's always going to be like 50% is just like professionalism. And then I think when you're starting out, it's probably more talent than relationship. right? Because that's what's going to get you noticed. So maybe then it's like 30% talent, 20% relationships or reputation, right? Like you build those over time. You don't have relationships, so it's a less important part of your success.
Yeah, I guess, gosh, just to be, I don't know, not devil's advocate, but just
Oh no,
to
yeah.
try to have a slightly different answer, I
Yeah,
suppose. I think I align with that. I wonder if relationships have a little bit more importance in the beginning because, finding an agent who can get you into casting rooms,
sure.
doing a good job, like that can like get you some momentum early on. I think
Yeah.
I don't know, something about the talent thing. I'm just really thinking about the ways it's just like you have to ultimately like trust your talent. So it's sort of like don't think about it too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to have some talent. You have to be able to memorize your lines and say the cue and interpret feedback and direction and adjust.
Sure.
So you
I guess I'm
definitely
thinking of it
need
as
it.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I guess I think of it as it opens doors for you to build those
Yeah, no,
relationships,
you're
right?
right. I think
Because if
that's
you don't
true.
have them, and I'm just thinking about, my own career looking backwards, is that if I wasn't fortunate enough to have some kind of charisma, then I never would have been offered some of the opportunities that I've had in terms of
Right.
education, right? I'm still waiting on those professional opportunities, but I've had a lot of great ones in terms of education where someone's
Right,
like, "Hey,
right.
I see potential in you.
Yeah,
Come audit my class. Like, I know you don't have money. Like,
gonna
that's fine."
invest.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. So, like, I've been lucky in that way. So, I guess like maybe my personal experience is skewing it like that.
yeah,
But I also did make those relationships, right? Like, I was likable enough as me because I'm sure that you know I could be equally as likable, but a completely terrible actor, and they would be like, "Thank you so much, Sean. It was so nice to meet you." So
yeah.
it's
I mean, we were so like whatever.
yeah.
I not to like digress into like a little personal anecdote, but I performed this Chekhov thing last night, and we were
Mhm.
talking about it, and I talked about it with some castmates too, of just this idea of like you studied Chekhov in college,
Yeah,
and it doesn't make you might really want it to make sense
yeah,
and you want to be good at it. Like you have this like young enthusiasm to be like, I'm going to be best Chekhov actor ever or Shakespearean actor or whatever, right? I want to prove my talent
yeah.
and you get rejected for that, right? It doesn't quite pay off or it doesn't
It
quite
comes across as like too try-harding,
try
right? Like,
hard.
yeah, yeah,
Exactly. Or if it does work, like, that doesn't pay off. There's no trophy, right?
right.
And the consensus was like, and the way I felt and was like, oh, it makes so much more sense now, 20
Yeah,
years later. Um,
yes.
there was just an ease to it, to engaging with the material because I've lived more of a life. So I guess when we talk about talent being like something that you're comfortable in your own skin, you've had some life experience. There's even in the beginning, I think your professionalism can kind of like carry your talent a little bit. I think
Yeah.
your ease to work with, your curiosity can and any like your relationships, you finding other people to make work with, whether it's a
Mhm.
storefront theater piece or a short film, is is going to feed that talent, and the
Yeah.
talent will grow and mature. And you you don't need the sort of dream, I think, of being like a young actor, of getting discovered, right? And
Yeah.
just being like, I'm the next thing. It's like, no, it's like that's one, it doesn't work out usually. The person who is discovered, they tend to have other demons come up
Yes.
as a result of all of that attention and success. But what about working actor? You're going to say 50 still, or 50
So I
50
think oddly enough, like
change?
as a working actor, this is where I feel like your talent is the least important
Mm-hmm.
because you're in the mix and it's much more about reputation and professionalism. And I would
Yeah.
say maybe even more reputation than professionalism. So maybe in this particular case, I'd be like, it is, for me, again, speaking from my experience, it's got to be like 60% relationships and reputation is like where work comes from. And then, it's like, so being known in a casting office, getting to know directors, getting to know people that can say yes to you and find opportunities. And then it's like, so if that's 60, then I'd say it's probably like 30% professionalism. So like people call you back and they want to continue to work with you again, and you bring good ideas and you're prepared and you're easy to work with. And then like it's 10% talent because it has to be there. And that's kind of like how I feel about it as a working actor.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think there's an aspect too of like talent, like you don't have, again, you don't have anything to prove once you're working. You just like, I just got to do the work. I just do the work and then let it go. And so that professionalism is part of the talent, right? That I'm preparing this. I know what to do. I have ideas that I'm bringing to set. I have questions. And then because if I am working, you learn little tricks, little like, okay, like I know, if I turn my head this way and catch the light here or say or speak at this register, that it'll read a certain way. And you don't have to be feeling it and don't have to be like inspired by the muses to like deliver that.
You find some technique.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is professionalism.
Yeah. Professional. Yeah. I guess it's technique.
Work ethic. Yeah.
And that's where talent is a mix of technique and intuition. But like, well, that maybe gets us into our next topic.
Well, before we get there, so like, what do you think? So movie stars, like, what do we think this ratio is? I think here it's almost like it goes back to being the beginner, right? Where it's like 50% talent and 30% relationships and 20% professionalism. Like all of a sudden now being a professional is not necessarily important. And you hear this about like the guy that never comes out of his trailer or, so it's like being professional is now not important. It's entirely about your talent and your likability and the audience that you play to. And then who that got you into that seat, like your agents, your managers, the directors you work with, your reputation. And it's like professionalism is now like, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are though some movie stars who are
100%.
Like, professionals.
Oh yes. And
like I mean, to go back to Tom Cruise, right? Like you watch those videos of him doing these stunts, that's professionalism. And that's an insane level of professionalism. And there's
it's something he was going to do anyways.
But he was going to, he's got this desire to be prepared. Now, I don't know what other things go on around outside of those videos or whatever, but like, and there's certainly talent there, but there's also relationships because he's got a long-standing relationship with Paramount. And, but at the same time, like some of those more recent MI movies have not done the numbers that they wanted. And like that, it's where do you, with the metrics being what they are. So relationships. I think the relationships around a movie star probably make a lot of difference because it's what producer, what studio, who wants to like say yes to this project so that they can get another project going. But I think there's what is it? There's something along the lines of like the very top. And then there's people who want to be at the top, and it's like they're the assholes usually.
Yes,
it's the people. It's where it depends on the person's ego, I suppose, right?
Yeah,
and their other demons or whatever. But I think the movie star does it. Their talent's carrying them, right? Like you have those. You see that an actor who just like does the same type of movie over and over again. It's like it puts butts in seats. There's relationships. There's producers. There's
profitable
relationship with audience. It makes money. They're in the black, and the professionalism doesn't matter as much for sure.
Yeah.
Unless the professionalism is the reason they keep making these movies again and again and again,
Right,
right?
right, right.
Yeah.
Well, and I would say like that's probably like your B-list actor,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And they tend to be professional. You know,
Yeah,
they tend to be pretty good because their profitability relies on that machine moving. So like,
right.
and they're aware of it. They're usually producers
They're
as
working for
well.
that back end and like, yeah,
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So like they're producers, they're signing paperwork, they're moving money, so they're aware that sitting in the trailer is costing money. You know, being
yeah,
late to set is costing money. Being unprepared is costing money. So like they're professional. All right, so now when hard work beats talent.
yeah,
So I think more often than not, hard work does beat talent. And if we're thinking about, you know, understanding character, right? So let's think about some of the craft of acting. I think your ability and desire to continue to ask questions of the material and of yourself and try to figure out who that character is, right? And that's where, you know, hard work can be talent. It's like continually asking yourself to go further, to find out more, to understand more fully or more deeply, you know, what is the experience of this person and how can I relate to that or how can I bring that to life, right? And it's continually asking like who that person is and not just relying on like, well, I know that people like it when I do this kind of thing, so let me just do that kind of thing and throw your own like bit in there or something, or fall back on your talent, right? It's like that work ethic can allow you to do so many more things than what your base level of talent can do.
yeah. I mean, I think the, it's that ability to want to just do to serve the story,
Yeah,
to work with and to be a collaborator. That's going to be the hard work, right? So the talent. I think like if we sort of think about it like your instincts or whatever, it can be off, right? It can
yeah,
be wrong. There are like Oscar winning performances that were the makeup Oscar, and you're like, that's not really that person's best performance. Like
sure.
that was them going full their thing and no director reining them in. And like 10 years earlier, that was the performance,
Yeah,
like I and that's where like why did that performance work? Well, there was a director who was like really working with the actor. They were working the character. They were
right.
molding the story. Yeah, I think hard work does beat talent because ultimately like, talent can convince you that you don't need to work hard. So
Right.
that's, I mean, we see it, we've talked about sports previously, but you see it in sports, right? Like really, there's really talented basketball players who have to like play into shape at the start of every season.
Yes.
And then there's like LeBron James who doesn't stop
Right.
being the prime of his.
Talented and hardworking. Right. Like
Yeah.
the two things together
And
are like
evolving, right?
superstars. Yeah.
And just looking for that bleeding edge of like, what else? How can I be better? How can I
Yeah.
be greater? I
Yeah.
Now that said, you can overwork something. You
Yeah.
can get in your own way. But I think the hard work comes from a place of like working on your instrument, working on your techniques, challenging yourself,
Right.
finding your sweet spots, and then also getting out of the way
Yeah.
and knowing when to edit and knowing when to do less and cut back, and that's where like the collaborating comes in. And I think that's where I don't know, you find, I like watching actors who you're like, oh, they like to work because they're working on different things, but you're like, they're also doing different things and trying different things. And, even
Yeah.
when it's kind of a dud, it's like, no, but I see what they were gravitated toward or something.
Yeah. Well, it's like they care.
Yeah.
You know, it's some part of them care. The actor cares. You know, and then there is that like weird part of it that as soon as somebody says action, you need to not care anymore about the result. But you know, when you're searching I think that's the how you demonstrate that you care, right? Is it's like it's in that work ethic. It's in the trying to find it in the moment, trying to.
Yeah.
But again, I to me, I think that's like trying to understand what's happening, so that way you're telling the truth.
Well, yeah. I mean, and that's something you work at, right? That's where
Yeah.
you're like the idea of like when you're younger, you're sort of you can't help, or at least in my experience, I couldn't help wanting to play the result sometimes, or wanting because I
Oh yeah.
wanted to show it. I can do it. I
Yeah.
can get emotional. I can get angry or whatever. And it's like, oh no, the result is like so much not the thing, right?
Yes.
The it's the objective. It's the tactics you're using. It's the
Well,
character you're exploring
if
that leads to a result, and you don't have control over what that is and what the audience responds to, and or the director responds to and works you toward.
yeah, I think if you're thinking about the result, you're not in the moment, right? And
Right.
that's not as interesting to watch.
So okay, so
Yeah.
I I don't have this, dear listener. I did not put this on the outline, so this is a surprise for Sean. But I can't help but think about being in acting class when you're younger,
Yeah.
or our age, but we don't get out to acting classes as often time because acting classes are long.
And they're late. Yeah.
They're late. They take up hours on end. But there's this experience, or I had this experience of watching other people struggle to connect to their talent. You know, I mean, we've said you can train, you can work hard, you can get there, and like, yet there can be a block, right? There can
Yeah.
be things that get in the way of that. I can speak to maybe what I saw, but I'm just curious if you had similar experiences where you're like, oh yeah, you know, now as I'm older, and when I was younger, I didn't have a lot of empathy for those actors. I thought they were wasting my time.
Sure.
And that was pompous and like self-centered
Yeah.
20-year-old
Yeah.
thinking that. And now I'm like, oh, I wonder what happened to that person. Like there was artistry there. There was
Yeah.
a desire to like to find their voice. And as far as I know, it didn't amount to any success. And maybe they went another direction or became a painter or a sculptor or musician. I don't know. But, you know, now I have so much more compassion just knowing how hard it is to have success, to have any little success, to feel like you are tapping into your talent amidst everything else going on.
Yeah.
There's a question in there, Sean. What do you like? Those people. It's not that those people weren't working hard, or do you have that experience where you're just like, yeah, there's someone actor in the class and sort of like not getting it or something. You know what I mean?
Yes. I have seen this. Yeah, and you see someone struggle and maybe it's like self-doubt,
Yeah.
something else that they're not willing to do, or maybe they feel embarrassed or foolish, or they feel like it's a little stupid. Like there's some part of them that's judging it. And
You have to be willing to fail.
well, you deal with a great deal of embarrassment,
Yeah, yeah.
right, as an actor. And I feel like that's we are playing pretend, right? So there is some part of that that's like a little embarrassing as an adult when you're like, you know, when you're being really vulnerable.
To speak to your point of being like, it's a little embarrassing to play pretend as an adult. Sure, I get that. Like, and
I mean, it's
I,
also incredibly fun, you know,
it
but
for sure. But like,
some things are embarrassing.
they're like, I did a short
But I
film.
don't think embarrassment is bad.
I got you,
Yeah, yeah,
but I know
yeah,
what you. But like, I just want to for the person maybe out there listening who's like, oh, I have that feeling. Like I do. Like I don't like. I'm judging myself or I'm feeling embarrassed, and that's getting in the way from fully expressing
sure.
my artistry. And I've, you know, I did I did a short film, and there were some military advisors on it, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
these guys who served our country, and they were like they were very excited about it. And I
yeah,
was like, I'm not doing anything cool. You did the cool thing already. Like you did
yeah,
you did this impressive thing. I'm telling the story. But from their point of view, they don't know how to do that, right? They don't know how to tell that story. So there's like, you are doing the cool thing because it's so outside of the norm,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And
yes.
so like what's embarrassing to us, even though we like doing it, is a superpower to other people, right?
Sure.
Like when like people who love you to retell a story. My mom's always like, tell that story. I'm like, stop.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
she just likes me coming alive telling a story, I think,
Yes,
more than the story
sure.
itself. But yeah, no, I think it could be that. It could be just
Well,
all the other things we deal with
well,
as
and there's a certain point too in your training as an actor where it starts to become real, right?
yeah,
Like the character's feelings start to become real. And I think that's scary for a lot of people that, because, it's fun, it's pretend. Yes, it is those things. But at a certain point, you do start to like the experience of the character starts to bring stuff up for you that you might not want to deal with or
yeah,
think
there's a
about.
mental health component
Yeah,
too.
right. Well, and so you have to not believe the stories that your brain is telling you, right? Like if something that the character is experiencing is close to an event that you've experienced, close to your own experience, right? Your body going through that might bring a memory up. But
Sure,
that doesn't mean the memory is serving the story or you, right? It doesn't mean that there's something that you have to work on per se. You kind of have to, in a meditative sense, observe that and let it go. Like you're watching, the TV guide or something. If you're old enough to remember what that is, where you're just watching the channels of these memories and you're not engaging with it. You're still present and trying to do your scene, but like, there's I think that's where people get uncomfortable and maybe some people decided that acting is not for them is that it's just like you're going to feel things and think of things and remember things and kind of like just go through experiences that are sometimes not pleasant in the
sure.
moment, but they're really like in after. It's kind of like working out where like you get really sore and it's really uncomfortable, but there's like a joy in that discomfort. And I think acting
But
is similar.
and that's part
But
of the
not
training,
everybody finds that fun, right?
right?
And I think that's, unfortunately, it takes you a couple of years of actor training to get to that point where you're starting to experience that stuff. And that's where people are like, oh, I don't enjoy this. And maybe
Mhm.
I don't want to act anymore. Yeah.
I think there's like I
It's not the creative modality for them. That doesn't mean they're not creative or they're not artists. They might be, but
just
maybe the acting is just not the thing for them to express with.
right. Yeah, like I like working out and I've tried jujitsu, but like I don't need
Nothing.
to do that all the time.
Yeah.
Like it
Well,
hurts. It
yeah.
hurts too
Well,
much.
I feel this way about running. Right? I like weightlifting. I could
Uh-huh.
weightlift all the time. I
Uh-huh.
really love it. I have a lot of fun doing it. And, running though, any kind of endurance work, not for me. And I've even like given it a good go, like several months, and it just
Mhm.
never got fun. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
this is just not. I'm not.
But
I'm not going to be a runner.
I think there's an aspect to what you were saying about acting, and I think when you mentioned Gene Hackman and Meryl Streep, it's like they can turn it on, they can turn it off. Not all actors can. Not all
That's true.
successful actors can. Some have to live in it
That's true.
to get there, and that's not fun. And having experimented with living in it, like for a few hours before you do a scene in class or something, and you're like, oh, that's really not fun.
Yeah, you're like raw
I'd
when you get
really
there.
much
Yeah.
rather learn how to turn it on and off. And that becomes part of your self training to like seek out, how do I do that? How do I find the balance? And then what do I need to do in my own personal life, be it therapy or better relationships or
Yeah.
what boundaries with family or
Sure.
friends that will allow me to not have it all bleed together so much if it doesn't serve the purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. We were going to do this thing of like, would you rather work with an actor A or B? I think we know our answer. Like, we'd much
Yes.
rather work with someone. I'll take prepared and collaborative over talent any day,
I agree.
especially if that talent comes with like inconsistencies or difficulty.
Baggage. Yeah.
Yeah, baggage. Yeah. But we've kind of touched on it, but do you have any advice to your younger self? Where should the focus be early in your career? Talent, relationships, work ethic?
You know, so I came from an athletic background, and work ethic was one of those things that came naturally, or I should say, came with me from my athletic background.
Mhm.
I wish that I put more effort into relationships and like building a network and
Yeah.
put more effort into that discomfort. Because the other stuff for me is a bit of an escape. So I
Hmm.
like that discomfort. But, feeling anxiety socially or out and trying to open a conversation, because like I'm also, for whatever reason, very few people come up to me, and it requires my effort, which I think is probably most people's experience. Occasionally, there's people that are like, well, "Yeah, I just can't go anywhere. People just start talking to me," and like that's great if you happen to be that way. For me, that happens like second. Like I need to
Hmm.
start talking, and then people are like, "Oh, you're easy to talk to,"
Hmm.
So like that anxiety though of getting started is a lot for me. Like I
Yeah.
have a lot of social anxiety. So
Okay.
building relationships is uncomfortable. And I don't always pick up some of the like subtle cues. Like sometimes I need people to be direct. And that is I mean I'm not talking like reading body language or something, like I get that, but like, you know, sometimes people will say something but they are really meaning something else, but the subtext is not clear to me in real life. I heard what you said and I'm taking you at your face value, but really what you want is something else. And if that's what you want, I need you to say that. Like I'm
Hmm.
not going to get there on my own. And that's so yeah, so I would say focus on relationships, build that skill, you know, learn how to converse with people earlier. Cuz like I'm much better at it now, but at 40 I've had a lot of practice and I wish I put more effort into it at 20.
Yeah, I had the same feeling of like I wish I would recommend people put more effort into their relationships. And I
Yeah.
guess what I think about that, especially now, right? Like when
Well,
we were starting,
especially it's
especially
changed a
now
lot.
that
Yeah.
the business is so fragmented that you are going to have to generate your own work or generate your own opportunities. And that's always been true, but there used to be clearer paths. And I'm a person who like I see the path and I'm like, great, I just follow this path. Like this is just what you do. So it was like, cool, get an agent, go to casting director workshops, get auditions. And now I don't need to worry about anything else because that'll just keep repeating itself. When that wasn't totally true because, you know, there's always the opportunity to go to a film festival, support a friend's play,
Yes.
audition for more theater, go do student films, even if you are getting work somewhere else.
Yes.
The learning, the learner's mind, the student mindset, I
Yeah.
think will carry you into new relationships through just like work and curiosity and those people, if you stick with the career for a decade or more, end up in other places that,
Yeah.
they can throw you a job, they can
Mhm.
introduce you to someone, they can pitch you for something. I think I don't think we said this on the episode we did about representatives, but it's like they take 10% or 15%. That means you have to generate 90% of your
Yes.
opportunity.
That's true.
And it was hard for me to wrap my head around that back then. And I still probably struggle with that a little bit because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But, that's where your network comes in. And that's where it's like when you are of service to other people and you are looking to create and collaborate, the relationships will happen a little more naturally, I
For
think.
sure. Well, and I'd say along those lines too, being a PA on someone else's set doesn't mean you're not an actor. You know,
Yeah,
it's like you
right.
don't ever put the being an actor away because you're helping someone else do something and you're learning a different skill on set or, you know, being a stage manager or something like learning other skills doesn't take you away from what you want to do. If
Yeah,
anything, it'll make you better because you'll have a deeper understanding for the whole system and what your role in it as an actor. Because you know, as an actor, you are only one part. You're the most
yeah.
visible part in a lot of cases, but you're only one part of a much larger device.
And I think like, when you like I wanted to focus a lot on talent when I was
Yeah,
younger, I suppose. And
sure.
finding ways to get that talent or to like cultivate that talent and or finding
Or find your talents.
shortcuts
Right.
that showcase my talent,
Yeah.
right? Like whether
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I did that, I'm going to sign up for this class because it looks good on the resume. And it's like, that's a result that doesn't get you what you want. You might learn a few things along the way, but you have to like let go of that
Yeah.
result to get
Well,
something out of it.
and you know,
And
it's tricky to be goal oriented, but focus on the process.
yeah,
But that's
that's
what
true.
you have to do.
Yeah.
You have to set goals, but like hold them loosely and then really focus on developing a system that those goals will be a result of.
Yeah.
They're not an end product, right? They're a byproduct. And that's takes a long time to learn because I was very similar when I was younger. I was like, I'm going to go to UCB and that's like people in commercials like that. And I'm going to train with this teacher and I'm going to get, you know, and it's at a certain point, I was like, none of that matters. What am I interested in? What's going to help me develop a process that I like that a byproduct of that will be booking a role. Right.
Yeah.
And that was a major turning point when I finally accepted that.
And I think with like, relationships, it's like, especially if you're trying to make new relationships with people who might want to make work, might want to collaborate and create something, then you have the opportunity to prove your work ethic in those relationships and
Yeah.
show up for those relationships. And uh, it's Flake City out there when you're
Yes.
younger and even when you're older.
Yeah.
But it's like kind of like I don't know. I think in college, right, your freshman year, you tend to meet a lot of people, and it's like you have a ton of friends, and then by the time you get to senior year, you've sort of whittled it down to like the people who
It's like
really matter to
three.
you,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
and it's like you kind of just have to do that again as a
Yeah.
as
As a
and you,
professional.
and I don't know, maybe I think we're discovering in this process, you kind of have to do it again and again. Like
Yes.
there is a reinvention that
Yeah.
goes into having a career, and I mean we're doing it right now a little bit.
Yeah. For sure. Well, this has been a lot of episode, way more than I thought we were going to fill.
A bunch of windbags over here.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It
Make a
turns
long
out.
story longer.
Yeah. Yeah. It turns out I am my father's son after all. Yeah.
What's ad libs? What's bringing you joy?
So for me right now, I have a 3D printer, right? And I found this guy that has like designed parts for like so you can make like custom racetracks. And my 2-year-old
Uh,
son loves like Hot Wheels cars, but he doesn't want to like shoot them down the tracks and watch them do loops and whatever. He wants to like push them on the road, right? And like watch their wheels turn and stuff. So this guy made a racetrack essentially, but you print it in pieces and you can design it however you want and you can
oh,
make all these
cool.
different things. And like, so I started like a few days ago, started printing these things and we now have like a rudimentary oval and I'm going to start just printing more pieces so we can make more complicated tracks. But I'm
Nice.
having an unreasonable amount of fun with that for some reason. So
That's awesome.
that's been my ad lib this week.
Oh, nice. Well, mine's related. We bought I have a 16-month-old who's now toddling, and we were like, oh, we need to get him some balls to just so he has something to carry,
Yes.
so that he can try to practice walking and holding something. And he has now discovered the joy of like slam dunking stuff and putting things in
Nice.
bins. And but we bought him a mini FIFA ball, a World Cup
Yeah.
replica. And I'm loving the World Cup, and I'm loving him basically pretending to be a goalkeeper because that's all he kind of knows how to do. He can't kick it yet. He just knows how to pick it up and throw it a little bit.
Yeah.
But so he chases that soccer ball around, and then I'm listening to all the soccer podcasts that I can about the stories I missed from any games I didn't see, and looking forward to a Kick It in the Park event somewhere around LA where they're going to do outdoor screenings and he can run around and we can watch. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been super fun. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Supporting Actors, a podcast about the art, business, and craft of acting from two sometimes working actors. I've been Sean Dubé.
And I'm Patrick Quinlan.
If you have any questions or comments, you can send them to us as an email to ask@supportingactors.com. Leave a question or a comment wherever you're listening to this. If you are on Spotify or Apple, please rate our podcast and give us a review. Feedback is always great. Thanks so much for listening.
Tune in next week where Sean and I will both be wearing prosthetic bellies.
That's right.